little longer data retention so that they could actually say that their clients weren't there. So.
And one quick follow-up. Does that include,
Okay, so we'll move in the tour in the front.
Are police required to disclose how they gain evidence on you so that you can show the legality of how they made that? They're supposed to.
Fair use.
Yes,
Educational criticism and critique.
Yes, and God bless the new DMCA exemption.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So I want to play devil's advocate real quick. It's perfectly legal for me to ask 10 companies in New York City if I could drop a network-enabled oscilloscope at their locations and track anything going on, we'll say 350 megahertz, which is AT&T's GSM 3G frequency, right? So I can track essentially every cell phone.
I take issue with your premise, although I'm not quite sure I understood all of it. But so maybe you want to come up here and say it in the mic. But I don't think AT&T can consent to letting someone else track their customers in that manner.
Okay, so what I'm saying is it's perfectly legal for me to ask 10 companies in any city if I can have a network-enabled oscilloscope,
I don't know what that is.
a frequency tracker,
Okay.
something that just listens to radio frequencies.
That's not perfectly legal.
Is it not?
It's not.
I've got a radio that can. I've got an AM radio that can listen to 1,000 megahertz, and I've got an FM radio that can listen to 1 point something megahertz, and that's perfectly legal. Well, my question is, if I can do this,
I don't know that you can. That's what I'm saying. I mean, just because something is transmitted over radio, that doesn't mean that it's not protected by privacy statutes, including the wiretap statute.
well, I mean, I can't listen to their cell phone messages because obviously CDMA and GSM are encrypted. But I can, if I have 10 of them out there, I can triangulate where every cell phone is in the city.
Yeah, well, and I would say that.
The question is, why can't law enforcement do that?
Well, I think, again, I take issue with your premise. It would actually be illegal under the pen register statute, 18 U.S.C. 3121, which regulates your acquisition by a device of dialing, routing, addressing, or signaling information regarding a communication. So actually that kind of monitoring without consent is, in fact, a federal crime, albeit a misdemeanor.
But in that statement, sniffing a wireless network would be illegal under the exact same statute, which is Google Wi-Fi.
Indeed.
Right.
In fact, if you Google for Paul Ohm and Google Wi-Fi, and you'll see our friend Paul Ohm over the University of Colorado, formerly of DOJ, noting his belief that Google's sniffing, even if they didn't collect content, violated this pen register statute. But, all right. Yes, sir.
What's the distinction between a drug sniffing dog, looking around the perimeter of your car or what have you, and referencing the Minority Report, and forcibly being in a situation where you have to demonstrate your identity against your will, certainly in your castle, but even if you were outside of that, if you're walking down the street and some robot, some autonomous thing came up to you, would you have to demonstrate your identity? I don't normally have any document that demonstrates beyond a shadow of doubt that I am who I say I am on me at all times.
Well, there is a troubling Supreme Court ruling in Hybel, assessing the constitutionality of a state's stop and identify statute, which gave police officers the right to stop you and require you to show identification. And the Supreme Court, very unfortunately, found that that was constitutional and not a search or a seizure. But it's been a long time a few years, and I haven't paid attention to that issue in a while. But certainly if robots were doing that, EFF and ACLU would be ready to litigate that issue.
And it's an issue that we've talked about in the RFID context with surreptitious identification. Even if there isn't a stop, so if you're not actually stopped and seized, but they're actually identifying you surreptitiously going down the street with mass surveillance, and I've written a law review article on that, talking about that, and the Fourth Amendment implications of that. So, I think that it's a little different than the dog sniff case I talked about, because that person had been stopped for a traffic violation and been lawfully stopped. And then there was a dog sniff. So it's a slightly, as lawyerly as we are, it's a slightly different avenue of jurisprudence, but it's a good question and something we need to continue to be vigilant about.
So we've reached the end of our time here, but I did want to ask people to throw out suggestions on clips or movies that we might include. And yes, we are aware of the film Enemy of the State.
And we also, if we'd had more time here, we also have clips from Brazil and Gattaca. So we've got those ones too. But
so
if there are
just
others,
throw them out there.
Yeah.
What's that? Computer Beach Party. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, sir.
Okay. Is this for your
Body
own
of Lies,
interest?
yes.
Or?
Body of Lies could be good.
And we've also considered television, like 24, of course. Mm-hmm. So.
The Wire, that would be a good choice. 1984, yes, but that's such a downer of a movie. Point.
Brazil is a dystopian.
Any others? V for Vendetta, okay.
Oh.
I have to admit, and endanger my geek cred, I have not watched Torchwood, but I guess I will now. Blade Runner. What surveillance do you recall from Blade Runner? Oh, the Voight-Kampff test. THX 1138. Anything else? What was that? I have not seen the Echelon Code. I hear it's quite awful, but I think it's streaming for free on Netflix.
We could create
so
a new one that's B movies, depictions of surveillance in B movies.
Okay, well, yes, sir. Real life surveillance scenarios on YouTube.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Eagle Eye. Okay, I haven't seen that either, but maybe I should. I shouldn't see Eagle Eye? Okay. Thank you for the warning.
All right. Well, we thank you guys. We thank you guys for coming.